Alright, guys. It's been a minute since I actually read Chainsaw Man. Um, I've been wanting to review it ever since I finished it. I did not finish it when it came out, by the way. I was not sort of reading it as it came out, even though I'm personally not like a binger, honestly. I actually like with anime manga, I like following them as they come out, kind of, because like it just gives me an easier way to like manage my time. I feel, in a way. Well, even that's not really true. Like I had been watching Megalobox and the new My Hero Academia season, this season, and then I just kind of fell off because I was so busy. So those I would have to binge now. Except like with My Hero, I'm like thinking maybe I'll just move to the manga because honestly I wasn't like enjoying the anime version that much anymore. And the manga looks so insanely cracked right now, from what I saw. But yeah, this is not about that. This is about Chainsaw Man, and see, it was interesting because like I loved it. I'll just say that up front. And I'm not gonna spoil everything immediately. I might spoil some stuff in like, you know, the second half of this video slash podcast, whatever. But the first half is gonna be completely spoiler free, as always. I'll say it was the kind of thing where I was very intrigued from very early on, right? And I have a friend in college who is very into anime manga, and she picked it up, and she was not that into it so far. I'm not sure if she kept up with it, but like, yeah, she was like not that intrigued by the beginning. She thought it was kind of bland, whatever. And it did make me think a little bit about sort of how we approach stories and that kind of shit, because I hear the same thing with Hunter x Hunter a lot, for example, that oh, the first arc of Hunter x Hunter is like kind of boring and like it's not that interesting, whatever, right? And like you kind of have to push through it. See, I'm someone, I don't believe that it's reasonable, especially with games, right? That it's reasonable to expect someone to go through this like huge initial time investment, and I think 5 hours, even 3 hours, that's good investment, right? That's a lot of time, IMO. That is like, again, that is reasonable to expect from someone if after that somehow it gets better, right? It crosses some weird threshold. See, I don't even believe in this idea magically that like that like obviously, especially with a serial, right, where it's produced sort of over time, it's not like a complete body of work immediately. Obviously you would assume that there's going to be natural dips in quality, like dips and valleys. No, dips and valleys are the same thing. Valleys and peaks, right? In quality. That is not the most unreasonable assumption. I didn't really feel that with Chainsaw Man. I don't really, I don't know. I can't really think of an example where it was like that for me. I'll say maybe Death Note, right? Death Note is maybe a strong example where a lot of the arcs are so distinctly fucking different. And I just know, I remember like with Death Note, everybody loves the way it starts. And then personally, I know I was really mixed on the like whole Yotsuba part. I'm not gonna spoil it, right? Because maybe you haven't seen Death Note. I don't know. Maybe you haven't read it. But like that whole part, and then I thought the ending was actually great, and something that I warmed up to a lot over time. The final third. But yeah, there is a like one weird dip in that series, right? For me. So definitely variances in quality can definitely happen. Like I guess I also get this idea that like, oh, a story or a game or whatever, it needs to get like some setup out of the way, and then after you've experienced that, it's a lot more enjoyable, right? I guess like with stories, I believe it way less than that's accurate than with like games, right? Because like if you're a storyteller, obviously, again, like I said, your passion for the work can be different over time, or you can just get better or worse at it, like as you burn out or as you gain more experience. Obviously, that all that makes sense, but like I'm just thinking intrinsically, if you're a great storyteller and you have interesting ideas, why wouldn't those ideas be like immediately visible? You know, with games it's a little more understandable, right? Because like games are like, I guess by nature of the medium, they can be very skill based, right, and very knowledge based even. That things just like a game just naturally gets better the more you play it. Actually, those are my favorite kinds of games, by the way. Like, from how I look at the medium, what I want out of games, that's my fucking favorite. If a game just gets better the more I play it, that's why you look at my favorites list, and it's always games that have some kind of skill-based element, and games that like it's always games that I have played over and over again because, number one, it gives me more assurance that it actually is my favorite. Like, I struggle saying, oh, this is my favorite if I've only played it once, you know? But then because of that mentality, it sort of reinforces my natural, like, tendency to go for that kind of experience, you know? To go for a game that's more skill-based and where you get significant differences in, like, the playing experience as you spend more time with it. But then, like, people will use this argument very commonly for like JRPGs, for example, and see, with JRPGs it is really genuinely weird because like the combat really does not get more complex as you go on. It stays relatively shallow the whole time. I guess the most famous example is something like Final Fantasy 13, where the second half of the game you're dropped into this gigantic open world and you have your full party and a little bit more customization, right? But like fundamentally, nothing really changed with the game design or whatever, right? And I mean, just this 25-hour investment to get to that point, if you're not enjoying it, is like completely fucking unreasonable, right? I think most people can agree with that. But I've been playing Strange Journey, or well, even I have been playing is like kind of pushing it, saying it like that because I haven't touched it like in a couple weeks. Strange Journey Redux on the 3DS. I played it for 5 hours, I think, total now. And just already the amount of autopiloting I do in the combat is very much getting to me. And I just know it's not gonna change, right? And I don't know. I think if you have sort of the level of like tolerance for the game immediately, right? Like, because I don't see Strange Journey fans generally say, yeah, I hated the first 5 hours and then got goated, right? And like, I wouldn't say I wouldn't even say I hated the first 5 hours, but like, I'm just super mad on it and I don't feel a natural pull to keep playing. So I don't really see the point in sticking with it, honestly. Well, I'm thinking I'll give it like 3 more hours or something like that, but then, I mean, that's the thing, like, I think JRPG players, they have a completely warped perspective on what is a reasonable time investment. I think 5 hours is way more than is actually reasonable already, right? And I always say Alien Soldier is 40 minutes long and has like more depth packed into that amount of time than most other games, right? Than basically every JRPG. So JRPG players genuinely are just built different, you know? Are just built different that they will be so up to go for that experience for hours and hours and hours, but then not play Alien Soldier for 40 minutes. I don't know. See, all that sounds like a tangent, but I think it's kind of relevant to Chainsaw Man a little bit. Because if you haven't read it yet, you know, I'm gonna try to sell you a little bit on it. I feel this with Hunter x Hunter a lot as well, where, did I say that already? That like people say, oh, the first arc is so boring. But like, I just cannot relate to that because I feel like Hunter x Hunter already in the first couple episodes, it presents so many interesting concepts and like just these really selfish and weird characters that have these very hard edges to them. And you immediately feel that the world is very cutthroat and very unforgiving. I mean, you've all seen the memes of like Killua and Gon, and Killua's like, I've killed lots of people, and then Gon is like, cool, can I have your skateboard? That's not even like that exaggerated, right? Compared to how it happens in the actual show. And I feel like a juxtaposition like that has a lot of meaning already, right? It has a lot of significance, and it tells you a lot about the work that you're going to experience, and it's the kind of thing that invested me in it, right? It's the kind of thing that made me really curious to keep watching it very immediately. And I guess, like, you know, there's like a balance between, yeah, you can set up a story and blah, you present sort of a traditional kind of setting to subvert it later, right? I think you can sort of recognize those things and then immediately tell yourself, oh, that's kind of lame, right? I think that's what a lot of people do. But I truly believe if you're an attentive viewer or reader in this, or in the case of Chainsaw Man, right? Well, soon a viewer because they're making an anime and it looks pretty good. If you're attentive to a certain degree, I don't think that you will miss those kinds of hints, right? Those hints at something more that Hunter x Hunter, for example, has, right? I think it would be a little bit reductive to like watch the first. To me, it says more about the fact that maybe you didn't give it your full attention, right? With something like Hunter x Hunter, that you thought the first arc was super boring, even though I really do believe that there's interesting concepts in there immediately, right? And I guess, like, you know, in a way, that's where kind of, like, listening to fans of the work, actually, yeah, okay, it's weird, right? To fans and reviews of the work, if you listen to them, right? It can help a lot, because it can clue you in to what to look for. I mean, with Chainsaw Man, by the time I read it, there already were so many think pieces about, like, oh, Denji is a fucking loser, and, like, he's trying to, become, like, a real person, right? Essentially. I could, like, there's a very good chance that that already primed me for the experience, right? I was already primed to, like, read it in that way and to, interpret it in that way. And to look for those signs, right? So I'm not gonna give myself full credit for, like, paying attention to it. But, like, yeah, the way fans talk about their favorite thing, it can be equally harmful, because more often, I don't know, I don't really entirely understand, obviously, how the average person reads a work like Hunter x Hunter or Chainsaw Man, right? But, like, kind of as I implied with, like, the whole JRPG thing earlier, fans of that thing, instead of saying, oh, I think there's genuinely interesting stuff in there, at the you know, the first arc, whatever, in the intro, instead of saying that, they will say, oh, it gets better later, you know? And I think the it gets better later is not a great way to sell people, right? It's not a way to instill confidence, especially because you hear it so often. Yeah, and, like, I hate banging on about this, right? But, like, just with the JRPGs again, right? Like, I think the reason you hear the it gets better later fucking rhetoric a lot is because even fans of JRPGs know that actually the beginning is super fucking boring, right? And there isn't really anything to it, right? And there's no reason to, like, for it to be so drawn out like they are often, because the mechanics that are presented are not substantive enough, really, to justify long tutorials and just all these cutscenes or whatever. I don't know. See, I figure if you know me, you're insanely fucking tired of me talking about this stuff, and I'm sorry that it keeps coming up. I don't know. It's just, like, as someone who I've recently thought a lot about, wow, I might have ADHD. I haven't been diagnosed yet. I want to get a diagnosis at some point. But just, like, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, oh, fuck. Like, I have a really hard time focusing on one thing, right? And I need to take so many extra steps to keep myself focused on stuff that I don't find fully engaging, right? Even with stuff that I do find engaging, even with games, like, I take way too many breaks. I, like, well, except, like, yeah, like, legitimately, if it's, like, Melee or DMC4, I just love getting hyper focused on those games, right? But then with almost everything else, I have to like look at my phone every 5 minutes, and it's the worst, right? Yeah, as someone who has that problem, right, who has that problem of managing his time properly and focusing on things, right, and who will lose a lot of time in the day, and then is also on top of that just genuinely very busy, right? It's very hard for me not to constantly think about how many games don't really respect your time, right? And that's why, I don't know, just like the whole JRPG, hive mind, and all that has become so unrelatable to me, you know? And like, I'm always so exposed to it, and that's why I can't stop thinking about it and commenting on it, you know? I guess that's the best way I can put it. It's like genuinely not with malice or anything, right? It's genuinely not with contempt or like, yeah, there's no hard feelings, right? I'm just like, I just can't help but like be like, okay, this is kind of weird, right? Like, why do people like this? Genuinely, right? I'm not trying to hate on anyone. It's just, for me, it's become such a fucking issue in my life, you know? Just that kind of experience taking up your time. Or like, not even that, but like just finding stuff where I feel like it respects my time, yeah. And Chainsaw Man, to tie it back to the actual topic of this video, whatever. Well, you know, maybe I'm just gonna preface it this by saying like, hey, this is like fucking big tangent on stories and fucking time and all that shit in general. Yeah, I'll do that. That seems like a good idea. Anyway, Chainsaw Man, right? For those who don't know, just real quick recap. Denji, just this young boy living in Japan. By the time we get into the story, he's 16. We see some flashbacks of his younger self sometimes. His father, he lives just with his father, right? Just the two. And his father one day takes his own life because he has huge debt with the Yakuza. And, you know, the natural assumption is he just got so overwhelmed with the whole situation that, right? So Denji has to fend for himself. And what's interesting is that where, you know, the society that Chainsaw Man depicts, it's not super clear from the start, but basically demons are just an everyday fucking occurrence. They're everywhere in the world, and like everyone knows about them, right? And they're just this like everyday threat, right? They could appear at any time. And from that, naturally, we have demon hunters, right? Who take care of business, provide safety for civilians, right? And Denji meets this tiny demon dog with like a chainsaw coming out of its head called Panchita. Actually, I think Denji gives it that name. I'm not sure anymore. Doesn't really matter. And with the help of Panchita, Panchita is like, you know, Denji's dad passes away. And then he meets Panchita, and then with the dog's help, he keeps working for the Yakuza, doing like odd demon hunter jobs, right? And even doing that, by the time Denji is 16, he sold one of his eyeballs. He sold multiple organs. I think he sold one of his nuts. And he just has a super fucking miserable life. He sleeps in this tiny fucking dirty shack, and on the best days, he will eat like one slice of toast with marmalade on it, with strawberry jam. And all he thinks about is just having good breakfast and touching titties. And he's just very, like, it's very weird, right? Like, his life is super fucking shitty, obviously. But he kind of has this optimistic outlook, right? He has these really mundane things that he dreams for, and that is very likable immediately. It's very endearing that, I guess sort of part of what makes Chainsaw Man great is that it really, you as the reader, makes you appreciate the small things in life. And, you know, it made me think a lot about how I feel like in Japanese stories, it's way more common than in the West to, like, really focus on people on the fringes of society, you know? People that we, like, if you're listening to this, you're probably relatively privileged, right? Comparatively. I know I am. And yeah, it's just easy to not so actively think about what is missing from the life of a homeless person, a poor person, right? And Chainsaw Man just gives you this super honest, brutal kind of look at that, where Denji really has to fight for like the smallest bit of happiness and somehow still maintains optimism, right? For a lot of the series. So, what happens early on is that the Yakuza just kind of gets tired of Denji, right? They're like, okay, fuck you, you don't serve any purpose for us anymore. They trick him into like this abandoned warehouse, kill him there, and then Denji suddenly fuses with Panchita and becomes Chainsaw Man, right? He can turn into this chainsaw devil, just with this really crazy fucking design with like chainsaws coming out of his head and every limb. It's really dank. Kills all the Yakuza, is then picked up by this Demon Hunter Association, this like really professional organization, blah, blah, that from then on provide for him, but also keep him on a very tight leash. And I guess like throughout the whole series, this like symbolism of like the image of the dog is very important, right? Like that Denji is compared, you know, he's literally fused with this dog demon, and then he keeps being compared to a dog throughout the series. But then also, you know, it's in more subtle ways, right? Where he's under very tight control, very tight regulation in the whole system. And the series uses that as like a launching off point to say a lot about just general Japanese society. Well, I mean, I guess a lot of the themes there could also apply to the West as well. But it feels a little bit specific to Japan in a lot of ways. Yeah, what we learn early on is that there was this huge fucking calamity, I think about a decade ago by the time the show sort of, the book sort of sets in, where the Gun Devil, in the span of a couple seconds, killed like millions of people all over the world, right? And so many people were so fucking tragically affected by this. And the main sort of quest of Chainsaw Man ends up revolving around finding this Gun Devil and taking them out for good, right? That's sort of the just the basic setup, right? And you end up seeing how a lot of the different characters in the series relate to the Gun Devil, what their story with the Gun Devil is. You have this one of the main characters, Hayakawa, or Aki. Is Aki like his first name or like his nickname? I forget, but easily one of the most based characters in that whole squad. He's also part of the Demon Hunter Association because his family was murdered by the Gun Devil very tragically and very sort of serendipitously. And I guess from that, the series does such a great job bringing together characters of like vastly different backgrounds and like sort of with different outlooks on life together, and like, yeah, like letting them build genuine relationships over the course of the series, where it really becomes important for them to sort of decide what they actually care about in this like super regulated society where people expect very specific things from you all the time. It's a little bit hard to like talk about it without spoiling anything, but like I think just that angle, you see it so quickly in this series, right? And I think if you pay a little bit of attention to that, you're gonna enjoy it way more, right? Than if you look at it as this standard kind of shonen thing. Because, like, yeah, if you just describe it on the surface, and if you look at it on the surface, it looks so stupid, right? Just a fucking horny teenager with turns into Chainsaw Man, right? Like, I mean, literally Chainsaw Man, the title of the character sounds like a shitpost, right? It sounds like a shitpost. and he just goes on this rampage and he kills monsters, whatever, right? It sounds so dumb, but that's part of the point, right? It's a series that's very genuine at all times, and like, the characters have so many moments where they're, like, genuinely really pathetic, and also, like, I don't know, like, it's not trying to look cool at all times. It's not trying to give you this, like, really polished fucking, view of humanity. It's very flawed and very rough around the edges. And, that's why moments of happiness and moments of, like, sincere kind of joy in the series hits so much harder. And then the opposite is also true, right? Like, there's so much fucked up shit toward the end of the series, that left me in genuine shock in a way that I truly have not experienced with other, books, or, yeah, I mean, like, Hunter x Hunter maybe comes close, right? But at least as far as, like, that's the thing, like, I mean, I watched the Hunter x Hunter anime, right? I think achieving that reaction from me without music, without moving images, without voice acting, that's pretty incredible. And yeah, especially toward the end, there's so much just tragic irony, and yeah, you kind of, as the reader, you kind of just have to accept things the way they are, and it's very shitty, but, like, yeah, man. I guess on that note, it's worth saying that the series, it ends, not with, like, a cliffhanger or anything, right? It's, like, it's a pretty complete story by the end. But it ends with a setup for more, right? For a Chainsaw Man 2, essentially. And, I was very, like, because of everything that I said so far, right? Because of all that, because the characters had so much development, and, like, Denji especially is such a different person by the end of the story, compared to the start, it genuinely makes you excited to, like, see where this could go, and what other situations you could throw the characters in. I don't really have a smooth segue to talk about the art, but I would like to talk about that next, and then maybe close things off. I can't believe I talked for 20 minutes about all this other shit that didn't really matter specifically to Chainsaw Man, and then I talked for 10 minutes about Chainsaw Man, right? This review could have been 10 minutes. But, like, yeah, the art, it has just this very charming style where I can't even really describe it. Like, it feels, I guess the thing that struck me is that it's very efficient, right? It doesn't really have the faces and, like, just the, you know, all the bodies and stuff have very actually simple amount of detail, right? There's not that much detail in the faces, but just the way Fujimoto, the author, chooses angles and different expressions, like, the faces are so incredibly fucking expressive, and you really feel it. You really feel the difference between quieter scenes, more subdued kind of dialogue, right? But even then, they you know, just the way Fujimoto panels it, and the way he chooses the expressions, and the way he chooses the angles is very impactful, right? Like, I think just the difference between just regular fucking panels and then full page. Well, a spread is like when you use 2 pages, right? But then you have sometimes, like, just a full page for one illustration. It's always paced extremely fucking effectively. There's just this one fucking legendary page where Aki, Hayakawa, who I mentioned earlier, someone comes up to him, right, after, like, a really bloody battle, and Hayakawa just sort of stands there in this, like, just big fucking, not even big room, but, like, it's this just kind of dirty, dingy room, and he's, like, perfectly centered, and, like, all the walls are splattered with blood, and Aki is just standing there and, like, you know, directed toward the camera, essentially, and handing the other person that just came up, like a paper towel, right, so that they can clean the blood off of themselves a little bit. And I'm not gonna spoil sort of how that fits into the larger story of the series, right? But just there's, like, a big event before that, specifically with Hayakawa's character, and then having this, like, weird fight, right? And then this fucking page is so effective, right? Like, it just really, if you've read it, you know what I mean, right? Like, it just sells the emotion perfectly with this one, like, hard punch, kind of. Yeah, like, you know, one thing I felt sort of reading Western comics is that, and maybe this is, like, super, you know, I'm painting with, like, super broad strokes, right? Maybe I'm, like, generalizing way too much. But I really did feel like, in The Walking Dead, for example, just they would get so obsessed with, like, full page illustrations, where, it didn't really have, there was no like, real emotional reason to go for that in that specific moment, right? It was just kind of like, oh, okay, like, we'll just do a fucking full page, even though the line of dialogue that they say is, like, not even that important, and it's not even that painful. And, like, conversely, Chainsaw Man, it doesn't even need dialogue in a lot of those instances, right? It just shows one extremely fucking cool panel at, like, a very key moment, and that, you know, sells the whole scene. And then there's, like, really subversive fucking moments later. I can't really spoil it, but, like, God, like, I'll just say, if you've read it, the part on the beach, and then a little bit, like, immediately after that, just the way they use the text is so fucking cool, and I have never really seen anything like that. And, yeah, what I wanted to talk about earlier, right? The contrast between sort of just regular dialogue scenes, where it's, like, kind of plain, and, like, Fujimoto does not spend a lot of time on backgrounds, right? But the characters still, they have cool designs, they're pretty expressive. But then, when you get to the action scenes, it's almost like it's a different artist, you know, where it has so much life, and it's so dynamic, and, again, just the exact right amount of detail, and the action is very easy to follow. It's just so fucking cool, and, like, the series is so gory as well, and I think, just blood and gore, specifically in manga, works so much better than in other forms of entertainment, where the art is completely black and white, right? So you can, if you have just huge fucking pools of blood and sprays of blood, whatever, you can draw it with just pure fucking black ink everywhere, and it looks so cool. And, yeah, like, a lot of the characters, they wear very sort of plain kind of business uniforms, right? And, just plain white shirts, and the way that contrasts with the black blood is so fucking cool. And, you know, I'll say so far, the anime, obviously, it's not black and white, right? But, like, it seems to be just nailing, like, the kinesthetic kind of feel of it. I don't know if kinesthetic is, like, the right word, like, that's more specific gaming term, right? Maybe kinetic is better. But, like, it seems to be nailing that very much, and, like, just the sense of, like, depth that I got from that first anime trailer was very nice. Just spatial depth. So I said with the action scenes, it's almost like it's a different artist. Obviously, that's like, I don't want to sound dismissive, right? I don't want to sound like the other scenes are not well done. It's more that, like, I guess the thing is, you can tell it is the same person. It's just so crazy, like, how elegantly the series transitions between these kinds of speeds, right? I don't really... I guess the point I'm trying to make is that it really feels, when you're in a quiet section, it really feels quiet. It really genuinely feels subdued. And then the action is such an insane contrast that it inherently kind of sells the idea better immediately. And, yeah, there was, like, one panel as well that got shared around so much with, I'll just say the astronauts, right? You've seen that panel, probably. There's just so many fucking cool creative ideas. And again, just great juxtapositions of panels and scenes without dialogue a lot. Again, I think the one thing that pops in my head a lot is the one part with Aki and Denji. I mean, it's not a huge spoiler, I'm just like, yeah, they're just kicking this one guy in the nuts over and over again. It's one of the best scenes. Oh, fuck, man. Yeah, and, you know, I've realized, I think I already said a lot about Chainsaw Man that I wanted to say without really spoiling anything, so I think I'm gonna skip the spoiler part. I'm not gonna really get into specifics. Maybe like, I mean, I think this would be a fun thing to like talk about with someone else. Yeah, if anyone's up, like to do like a little podcast or something, or like a stream. Like talk about it on stream. I'd be down for that for sure. But yeah, just the way Chainsaw Man leaves you is with just, it sort of has all these disparate elements and all this crazy imagery, but it has in the end a very cohesive fucking point that it makes, right, about our larger society. And I guess I don't want to spoil the point, right? I'm not gonna say what the point ultimately is, but at least to me, the way I read it. But I guess like I'll say, as someone personally who's very one thing I've tried the last couple of years as a person is to always just be as honest as possible, right? To always keep it 100. And to, when I think something, I'm gonna say it. I'm just gonna say it, right? Obviously not with the intent of hurting anyone, right? I'm gonna say it sort of as politely as I can, right? But I just hate how much we're keeping under the surface. Because like we think it's cringe, or we think we need to fit in or whatever, right? Or how much stuff we don't call out, even though we know it's wrong, right? I just hate that. I don't want to be like that. And I think Chainsaw Man says a lot about how difficult it is to be yourself, and how difficult it is to be genuine in that kind of society, right? And on that level, it really speaks to me. And like, it's just, again, it's just so intensely likable, just in every fucking fiber of that series. That if you haven't read it yet somehow, I highly recommend it. Well, I mean, the anime looks like it's gonna be pretty dank, right? But there's no harm in reading it. Like, just, oops, sorry. I don't really see any reason to like wait for the anime, honestly. I'm still gonna watch it. I'm still gonna, I'm very excited for it. I'm excited to see how they're gonna adapt it, but I'm very glad that I read it before. Like, because like, again, there's so many specific moments that I feel like are just not gonna be the same, right? Between manga and anime. So I think the manga is just worth experiencing on its own. Yeah, that's my Chainsaw Man review. Well, that's 20 minutes Chainsaw Man review, and then 20 minutes just fucking talking about stupid other shit. Yeah. I'm really happy. Like, I need to do 2 more videos for this month, and I think I can do that. I think that's super doable, and I mean, I'm gonna release this, like, probably this week. And then the big fucking YouTube relaunch that I've fucking promised for months now, this is definitely gonna happen this month. It's definitely gonna happen this month. Like, I think I've said that before as well. But, this time I see it. This time I really, truly see it. I'm, like, especially I look at my larger schedule and I'm like, okay, this looks really doable, actually. I'm gonna move heaven and earth to make it happen. Yeah. See you then.